In a previous video, I covered children's entertainment that I still enjoy as an adult. But there's a lot of adult animated content that I do enjoy as well. Like what, for instance? Let's get into it. Let's start with one that I do enjoy, but haven't watched in quite a long time. Family Guy. I was a teenager when the first 3 series of Family Guy came out. You know, the ones that got it cancelled twice. And I was a big fan of that style of humor at the time. I liked the fact that it was pushing the envelope in terms of what it could do as a show, and was quite sad when it was cancelled. I hoped for a return, but after a while I decided that it wasn't going to happen and bought the first 3 seasons on DVD. And then about a month later, they said they were bringing it back. And for a while, I really did enjoy the revival of Family Guy. It had the same type of humour that I enjoyed. There was only occasional swear words sprinkled in, and the cutaways weren't to the scale that they are now. There is no denying it ripped off The Simpsons, but it did start to push the boundaries of what adult entertainment could do. But I was always more of a fan of its sequel series. That's right, American Dad. The first season I wasn't the biggest fan of, until I saw the infamous episode where Stan is a little bit too obsessed with, let's just say, an adult form of entertainment so my channel doesn't get cancelled. That was when I felt that they embraced their own style of humour rather than just trying to copy and paste Family Guy. And from then, it has not looked back. It had the same premise as Family Guy, in the sense of it's a suburban family going a bit bonkers. But when they found their footing, they ran with it, took it in a completely different direction, and I always gravitated to it more, because I was looking for something different from the creators of Family Guy. And they eventually delivered that. And that's the series that I keep up with more than Family Guy. Family Guy I fell to the wayside, American Dad, not as much. It's kind of like The Simpsons sequel series in the sense that it stood on its own legs and eventually developed a large following of its own, which is another series that I enjoy, Futurama. It's a great twist on the fish out of water premise that a lot of shows try to do. And because it is set in the 31st century, it can constantly come back, no matter how many times it's been cancelled, and reflect on modern society as time is going on. It can take things that have maybe developed over the course of their breaks and then parody it with hit and miss quality, I will admit. But overall, I just love the show. The voice actors are fantastic. I love how, in particular, John DiMaggio is very much an advocate of voice actors' rights and is not afraid to say to people that he knows his worth, which was evident in one of the more recent revivals. And Futurama may be classed as like a comedy, but they are not afraid to really hit you in the gut with emotion, to the point where you are bawling like a baby, or choosing to skip said emotional episodes on the DVDs or streaming because you don't want to feel bad that day. And any fans of Futurama know which ones I'm talking about. And no matter how many times it got cancelled, they always stuck the landing with their finales. Futurama is a show that has been cancelled a lot and stayed strong, but the next one that I like, I'm surprised has never been cancelled because of how controversial and insane it is. Let's get into South Park. One that I have fallen by the wayside, not because of the show's quality, because it's so bloody hard to try and keep up with it. You have to have access to multitudes of different streaming sites, different channels, and there's very limited DVD releases to try and keep up to date with what's going on in South Park. But I was a big fan of South Park when I was a kid. I infamously remember taking a videotape to my gran's on Christmas to watch with my older brother, and my entire family was mortified. I am surprised I'm still alive after doing that. But even though it was controversial then, I still would stay up late and watch it. It felt like my little bit of rebellion against the system, because that's what South Park is. It rebels against the system constantly. It takes everything that is wrong with society and doesn't poke the bear. It damn near rams a cattle prod up its backside. It's why I always find it so funny when the meme pops up about people being offended by everything, but those people that are offended by everything grew up watching South Park and Family Guy. South Park isn't afraid to be controversial. It's built its reputation on being controversial, and you know exactly what you're going to get when you watch it. And if you don't like it, you shouldn't watch it. But the fact that it has lasted this long and is still so popular tells you that there is a certain population that love South Park. And I am one of those people. I mentioned previously about Family Guy having an over-reliance on cutaway gags, but you'll find it ironic that this next entry is one that is nothing but cutaway gags, yet I still enjoy it. Time to talk about Robot Chicken. I like the stop motion animation. I like the different voice actors that get involved in this project. I like that you can be going down one route with a parody and then totally swerve into something completely different in the same parody, and it just works. And yes, for all my Thomas fans, I have seen the Thomas the Tank Engine Die Hard Mission Impossible style parody. I loved it then, I still love it now. I've also got all 3 Robot Chicken Star Wars DVDs. Sadly, Robot Chicken isn't as readily available for me to watch. I would love to see it on like a Netflix or something. But speaking of a show that is on Netflix that I do enjoy, that is also under the Adult Swim banner, Rick and Morty. This was one that I gave it the first season to see how it would go. I normally do that with any first season of something that I watch. Get through it, see if they find their style, and if it improves in the second season, then I'll carry on. Rick and Morty, great example of that. Within that first season, they worked out the kinks, found their footing, and by season 2, they just went for it. And they have continued to go for it, even with the behind the scenes controversies that have happened, which I won't go into. What I will say about it though is that I was surprised that the controversies didn't actually affect the product going forward. They still put out a great product, and it worked just fine. Rick and Morty is one of those shows that people will either think is incredibly smart or incredibly stupid. I personally think it's quite clever, but you have to know a lot about not only sci-fi, but other genres of medium as well. And I think that is how Rick and Morty hits with a wide audience. Most audiences have an eclectic taste, so it appeals for the ones that don't quite fit into certain categories. And when I watched Rick and Morty on Netflix, one of the suggested series that I started watching after that was Archer. I wasn't a big fan of spy thrillers. I like James Bond, aside from some controversies here and there. I like the Bourne franchise. There's always something that is intriguing to me about that type of genre. And what I loved about Archer is that it takes that genre and completely shafts it. It takes the franchise in different directions all the time. The series is like The Simpsons in the sense of voice actors have passed away and yet they've still been able to keep it going and do a good job with it overall. I like the animation style, the voice cast are great, and it's something that you don't necessarily need to have hyper focus on while you're watching it. Sometimes you can just turn off your brain and watch all the wacky antics. These are but a handful of adult animated shows that I do enjoy. There are other ones that I have enjoyed in the past, which I either fell to the wayside or just didn't really take to it as I got older. Ones like Beavis and Butthead or Celebrity Deathmatch. A certain vintage will be traumatized by that, just like I was. But there's no denying that animated content is not just for kids, because there's adult animated TV shows that a lot of people gravitate to. And this is me not even touching on the anime genre, one that I am not a particular fan of, but I appreciate the artistry, the voiceover work, and the style of it. So if either of these 2 videos that I've done, the children's media and the adult media, have taught you anything, is that cartoons are not for kids. There are specific adult animated shows that you can enjoy. You might need to have a little bit of an intriguing sense of humour, and you need to be able to open your mind for a lot of shenanigans. But if you're willing to do that, there's a plethora of content out there for you to enjoy. Now, if you don't like animation, that's perfectly fine. Just don't make fun of the people that do enjoy it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.